J.W. Nelson write in multiple genres from adult comedy, drama, company of fools to poetry for the festive season, and now has recently released his first mid-grade YA novel, Pentagon Pirate Gang: The Secret of the Old Shard. He writes contemporary adventure focusing on diverse ethnic-based characters interwoven into stories using the immediate local area he lives in of Nottinghamshire, whilst passing himself off as a football coach, dancer, and disc jockey. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's a pleasure to have J.W. Nelson on the show. Welcome on the show, Nelson.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah, it's lovely and very wholesome to have you on the show today. I'm excited.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So Nelson, could you tell us about your book, Pentagon Pirate Gang, which I've seen. It's a YA, novel, young adult novel, The Secret of the Oshad. How does this book come about? What inspired you to write Pentagon Pirate Gang?
Several things inspired me to write it. I have two teen children, and I tried to think of ideas to write a book for somebody of their age group. So one of the things was they went to a primary school, and that school was called Orchard Primary School, so that's where the name comes from. And then I thought about, well, what if there was a secret orchard, and what if there was some special, powers that resided in that orchard? And then I started to think of how I could build the story out from there, involving school children of that age, what they would be doing in this orchard, and trying to develop a story that would span several books. So this is the first one in the series, and there's four more to come.
Now, I also love to ask you, Nelson, for readers like me who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could you have a sneak of what you would expect picking up the book?
Right. So you have a book which starts with 5 young students who go to a summer school. The summer school is based in the middle of Sherwood Forest, and at the school there are orchards which are attached to the school. Now, those orchards are forbidden for the children to go into, because there are secrets in there that the teachers don't want the students to find out about. Now, the headmistress and the deputy head, Mrs. Blackfruit and Mr. Thornby, are trying to hide these secrets. But the 5 students who go into part of the investigating the secret of the orchard, become aware of what they are. The secrets they find are very powerful, and it will end up changing their lives forever, more than they would expect. So it's a story about the children being, I suppose, like policemen. They're trying to find out what's going on, why the teachers are trying to hide these secrets. Then when they find out what they are, they find out how it affects them and the teachers as they go through the story.
Now, at this point, I'd love you if you can show a copy of the book to the camera, just so we can see what it looks like. Yeah, the Zoom background is kind of making it. You bring it up a little bit. Pentagon Pirate Gang, lovely cover.
Yeah.
Good, keep coming in and going up. Yeah, The Secret of the Ocean, lovely. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's good. Now, I'd love to ask you, Nelson, as authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your books, if you've ever had one in time past?
Well, I suppose from my point of view, when I write a book, I expect people will have their own opinion.
Yeah.
So some will be positive, some won't be positive. They may enjoy the book, but they don't like that type of book. So you might read a romance book. You don't like romance novels, but the book might be a well-written romance novel, but you might not like it. So I think when I get things that I think are helpful, because sometimes you get someone who, if they don't like it, that's fair enough. But sometimes they'll give you an idea of what they think you could change to make it better. Now that's fine, because I might say, well, maybe you should have put this part in the earlier chapter. Maybe you should leave this big bit to the ending, to make people want to read the next one. So they may tell you, I like your book, but maybe you could do this and change that. And that's fine, because that helps you learn as a writer. And when you write the next one, you can then change it for them.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the idea about that. And now I'm curious to know if you experienced any challenges while writing Pentagon Pirate Gang. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it? We'd love to talk about
I think some of the challenges, I think probably with any writer, being a family man, there are other responsibilities, have a full-time job. So the challenge is really finding the time to dedicate to the book, not only to write it, but also to do some of the research as well. So there's a lot of prep work before you start writing. Now, depending on what you read, I've read a lot of books about how to write books, and I've done a couple of writing courses. Some of them will tell you, when you get enough ideas, just start writing. Don't plan anything. Just put down as much as you can. Whereas some people, for a couple of the books I've written, I've had a storyboard. So I've kind of written out, so even just on bits of paper, roughly how I want the story to start, roughly what might happen in the middle, and then how I want it to end. And then I can write the whole thing. Once I've got those things in my head, I can then start to change the story, but at least I have a rough idea, maybe like a theme of what I want to happen in the book. Whereas some people just go, I'm just going to keep writing and I'll see where it takes me. But for me, sometimes you can get halfway through a book and then you run out of ideas and you think, oh, I don't know how to carry on now. But I think if you have a rough idea in your head to say, well, I know I want something to happen there, roughly something to happen there, and this is how I want it to end. Sometimes if you know the ending, and it sounds odd, you can write backwards. So if I know, say, for example, somebody's going to die in the end, right, you can write a book, say, well, how does that person die? Kind of thing. So you start from the opposite way and work backwards.
That's really a wholesome start. I love the sound of it. Now, I'd love to ask you, Nelson, apart from Pentagon Pirate Gang, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
So I've written an adult comedy drama before writing this Pentagon Pirate Gang called Company of Fools. That's also available on Amazon. So, and that's about a very simple premise, again, of a man who wants to get three things out of life. He wants to find a wife or a girlfriend. He wants to start a family, and he wants a good job. So, and this is his journey to try and get one, two, or all three of those things as he goes through it. And he comes across many different obstacles to try and get those three things. As you read out at the start, I've written a poetry book for Christmas, which is called Poems for the Festive Season. So that's available on Amazon as well, with 25 poems. And I'm hoping to write two children picture books. They're both already written. I'm just looking for an illustrator to put some pictures in it, and also then to seek a publisher to get it published.
That's great. That's got lovely to know. Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges you've encountered in terms of marketing your books, and what are the mediums you've utilized so far in promoting your book?
I think this is, for me, the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge I find is marketing. So writing the book's fine, getting the ideas is fine, and putting it together is fine. But then finding the right strategy to market it to the right people and as many people as possible in order for them to buy it and get interested in it. It's very difficult when you don't have a big budget. No one really knows who you are. So that is the hardest thing. And there are lots of companies out there that will try and market it for you. Often a lot of them will promise a lot of things that they probably can't deliver. So that in itself is a challenge. And there are two schools of thought. Some people say you can go down the traditional route, try and get an agent, and then get represented to get a publisher. And some people say, don't bother with that, just do it all yourself, which you can do. But obviously, there's a lot more work for you to do if you do it on your own. And when you're not experienced, especially in the marketing world, and it's so competitive because everyone's writing. So there's so many books out there to try and, if you do it yourself, to try and get your book on the front shelf, let's say, so people say, oh, I really like J.W. Nelson's book, Pentagon Barragan, I'll buy that. What will make them look at my book over the other 10,000 books that are going to be on Amazon or in the bookshop?
More than 10,000 even.
Well, exactly. Probably more like 10 million. But yeah. But that's probably the biggest challenge, is finding the right marketing route or path to get your book out to everyone.
Yeah, I love the idea of this, and this is actually what most people have in mind. Marketing, it's very hard when it comes to but publishing the book is not an easy thing. It's very fun, can be very great. Writing it, very great, even though it might be some challenge as well. But the actual work is in the marketing, and even more like a saying that the source of a business depends on its marketing. The success of a book actually depends on how far it goes and how many people get to see it. And I hope that this interview actually helped in getting most people to discover the book. Now, I'd love to ask you, Nelson, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we didn't mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
So I've got 5 characters in the Pentagon Pirate Gang, 5 main characters, 5 students. And there's one that's Asian, 2 are mixed race, their father's Jamaican, mother's white, and two white characters. Now, then the names of the characters have letters from my son and daughter's name. So you've got Semia, who's one of the characters in there. You've got Oro, who's one of the characters there, and they've all got a couple of letters from my son and daughter's name that's hidden within the book. The book is obviously set in Sherwood Forest, which is the home of Robin Hood. So for all the people that know about Robin Hood, with the archery and Little John and all the things that he carried out back in the 15th century, I've set it deliberately there because I myself now live in what would have been Sherwood Forest in Nottinghamshire. So I'm surrounded by forests and trees, not far from where I live. So I try to set the story, although it's a fantasy adventure book, it's set in a place that does actually exist.
Wow, I love the sound of that. Your book actually does sound very interesting. It sounds very amazing. I love the sound of it. And I'd love to ask you, Nelson, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book like yours? What should you tell people in this category?
So I think it's all the categories are very difficult. Obviously, there's a lot of people writing books in this category, mid-grade, young adult book. I think it's always difficult to be completely original because whatever you've probably done, somebody's done it in some way, shape, or form. But I look at it in the same way. If you look at how many books and films are about vampires, for example, there's millions of them, and they're all end up kind of similar because somebody gets bitten, and then they become the undead and they live forever, kind of thing. But yet there are still hundreds and hundreds of very good vampire books and films. So even though it's not a completely original idea, you can still attack it from a different dimension. Absolutely. With different characters. You can have a completely different turn on it. So I think the idea to try and create something that you believe in. So one of the things I tell new authors to do is try and think of where they are, which is why because I live in Nottinghamshire and I've used Sherwood Forest, try and think of something that you know a lot about. Maybe somewhere that you live. Maybe you have a really interesting uncle or auntie that's a bit maybe a bit weird, you use
Mm.
them as the catalyst to maybe develop one of your core characters, because
Absolutely.
you can use all the things which they done or you've heard your mom talk about them doing,
Yeah.
and use that in your fiction book, because that will give you, sometimes you might get writer's block and you're struggling to think of ideas.
Yeah.
If you think about what some of those people do, or maybe the where you live, you can get your ideas from all the local things. Maybe maybe there's a teacher at school who you really like, or whatever. You can use them. Think
Yeah.
about all the local surroundings, and you can use that as part of your ideas.
Yeah.
And one small tip, which someone gave me, which I do, either use your phone. So I've got my notes field in my phone, or have a notepad and pen. Have that beside your bed, or when you're watching TV. And sometimes you think, oh, that's a good idea for a book, or as part of my book. Write down the idea straight away, and you within a few weeks you'll suddenly find you have 10 pages of
Absolutely.
different bits, and you can think, right, and now I've got enough material to start my book or to continue it. You've
Yeah.
got something to lean on.
Yeah. That's very true. I can really relate to that. That's very true.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing it. I love that.
Yes.
Now, I'd love to ask you, Oris, for readers who love to get a copy of your book, for interested viewers who maybe pick some interest and would love to get a copy, on what
Yeah.
platform is it available on for purchase?
So the Pentagon Pirate Gang, The Secret of the Orchard, is available on Amazon. That's UK and the US. It's available on World of Books. It's also available on barnesandnoble.com. It's also available in bookshops. So you can get it from Waterstones in the UK, or Foyles, Foyles, Foyles Bookstore. So you can order it from any of those places, either online or in the bookshop, to get a copy.
That's great. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Horace books directly on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and on other platforms. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Nelson,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
accepting the invitation to be featured on P
No problem.
Literature. It's so awesome to have this conversation with you.
No problem. Thank you once for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.